All right, good. Is it good evening, everyone? I'm not sure if the others know that class has started. I can only see 4 individuals, um, and I'm wondering what's happening here. But maybe we can remind our colleagues if we know them or something, which I think we do. Um, or maybe it's we are ideally expecting just these individuals or something. I don't know. Yes, no. Anyway, uh, suppose we can start then. But what I'll do is I'll just send a. I think I'll just send a reminder just to be certain, I guess. Or something like that. All right, on with it, I suppose. Just checking, by the way, if you can hear me just fine, and also if you can see my screen here. I've just shared my screen, which reminds me, actually, maybe I should also remind people about or something, just in case. Anyways, that's fine. All right, so I'll start off with an apology. It turns out that there's a scheduling error with designated venue. Okay, so we are supposed to be using. We're actually supposed to be using C126 for almost all our interactions, but it appears the venue will be changed. Okay. And it's a reason I decided that I normally would not have preferred that we have an online kind of like interaction, if you will, but I prefer in-person interactions, especially early on in the process. But it turns out we were provided with a kind of tutorial group timetable, and I was shocked to see 126 having these sessions here. So today, for instance, you notice that from 17 to 17:50, there's supposed to be a tutorial. Shocking enough, there's also supposed to be a tutorial from 18 to 18:50, leaving us with really just an hour and 40 minutes, which is not sufficient. So instead of risking that, I figured we'd just have our interaction online. But I think by the time we're getting to next week, we would have figured out this. Okay. Again, I'll ask if you can hear me just fine, and also if I see somebody saying they're in the waiting room or something. There's I think I've activated auto admit or something. I don't think there's. Oh, okay. This thing is not working then. Don't know why that's the case. In fact, what this should have been is should have been configured in such a way that it's just open, instead of. I'm sure it's yeah. It was ticked on trusted sources. So I'll just open it up here going forward. There we go. Let's start here. Yeah, so that's pretty much the story about the venue ideally. I'm hoping that we are hoping that this issue will be resolved by the time we get into next week. So I guess we can start, right? My names are Lighton Piri, okay, and apparently I'm going to be I want to say one of the course instructors, because it's possible that we may have colleagues from public health, for instance, join us at some point. But for now, I'm the only designated course instructor for CSC 5541, right, which is tagged as health data management. Okay. So I'm a senior lecturer in the Department of Computing and Informatics. Yeah. All right. Just going to activate full presentation mode here. Yeah, and details, by the way, my details you can find on our research group website, which is here. I think we had two colleagues that joined in on an Administrivia course literally yesterday, and I was discussing some of the things we're going to look at least in the first part of today's lecture, which is tagged as Administrivia course overview and introduction. I almost always do this for introductory courses, just to give people an idea of what is going to be covered in the course, okay? And also because there's usually there's almost always a bit of uncertainty about what's going on in the course and the program as a whole. We are probably going to briefly discuss some generic things to do with the causes associated with the course itself, the program rather itself, and maybe just to get started, it turns out that the motivation for why we're going to be doing this, this course specifically, is because at least in the recent past, there's been a rise, right, or an evolution in the workflows and processes associated with healthcare systems. And what we see is a sort of situation where there's a diverse, types of data that are generated by these different systems. So that's what the course is going to be. And today's lecture really is organized as follows. There are 4 parts actually. We're just going to look at general administration-centric things to do with this course. And then there'll be a very, very brief course introduction where we'll just look at the key outcomes and how they're going to translate to the lectures that we're going to have in the course itself, right? And then because you people are doing what I suspect, I don't know if people know here, what type of masters are we doing? Do you know? We could have maybe different groups of individuals here, right? Do we know the type of masters we're enrolled into? Whether it's professional, certainly can't be a master's by research. So it's either you're doing professional masters, or you're likely doing a taught and dissertation. Do we know? Or do people know? Can you hear me, by the way? I just need to confirm. I may be talking to myself, right?
We're able to get you, Doc.
Oh, yes. Yes. Thank you. But then maybe you can answer. What type of, well, for you, Mr. Julius, what type of masters are you enrolled into?
With regards to what you've just given the options, I feel like it's something like taught and also dissertation.
Okay. I mean, we shouldn't feel here. You should know, right? I mean, your offer letter ideally is supposed to indicate. But looking at the profile of individuals and probably the things that you do at work or the things that you find yourself doing, it's likely that, by the way, if you go to, graduate.unza.zm, here, you will, I'm just going to share this link also, seeing as today is one of those informal sessions. I'm just going to share this in the info messages. In the event that you don't have access to this, there are quote unquote regulations, right? Postgraduate regulations for the UNZA. So if you go to graduate.unza.zm and you go to the graduate studies menu item, right? Just hover over it, and then you move down to regulations. You'll be taken to a page which has a direct link, a PDF document to the University of Zambia regulations which govern postgraduate studies. Okay, you really want to have a copy of this document here. It's not too long, 108 pages, and I always encourage. I don't know why this thing is not working here. I just said auto admit here, but it's not working. I always encourage colleagues that are enrolled in these advanced degree programs at UNZA to make sure that you familiarize yourself with this document. It outlines everything, what you're going to be doing this year, okay, in the first year, and the things you're going to be doing in part 2. In fact, it also outlines very, very important things like progression, your progression as it relates to the program itself. So for instance, you cannot progress moving on to part 2, they call it, which is the dissertation part, assuming you are all enrolled into the taught and dissertation masters. You can't progress if you fail a course in part 1. Okay. Interesting enough, just maybe FYI here, it turns out that postgraduate studies are clustered into various categories, right? So at the UNZA we have undergraduate, programs and postgraduate programs. So postgraduate programs can fall under the broader confines of a so-called postgraduate diploma. There are certain schools, especially in the School of Natural and Applied Sciences, where we have what's called a pre-master's bridging program. Okay, so if you're one of those people who would want to do a specific, kind of master's program, but you're lacking certain prerequisite courses, the expectation is that you spend a year doing these bridging courses, or you do the bridging program, and then you enroll into a master's or something. Usually the case that those that did their undergraduate studies at an institution other than the UNZA would be the ones that would be subjected to doing a pre-master's program. Idea. Okay, this is working just fine. Auto admit. Okay, so there's a pre-master's program, and the document really has a lot more details here about the conditions that have to be satisfied for you to be awarded the program. But we're not really concerned about the postgraduate diploma or pre-master's bridging program. I think our interest is in the program that we're pursuing, right? So it's either you're pursuing what's called a professional master's degree program, and the idea behind why it's called a professional master's is you do coursework, right, exclusively. It's mostly targeted towards people that who in all likelihood not really do any sort of intensive research, right, once they're done with their master's program. And then you have what's called a taught master's degree by coursework and dissertation. Probably one of the most popular master's programs at the UNZA. Offered, I think this option is offered virtually in all the faculties of the schools. Okay. And then you have, I guess if you're from the School of Medicine, for instance, you have a Master of Medicine degree program or something like that, right? And then we also have a quote-unquote master's by research. Is it master's degree by research? What happens here is you start the first year by starting, you start working on your research in the first year, so you don't do any coursework. And the distinction really between the master's by research and possibly what you guys, most of you are enrolled into, which is a taught master's degree, is that what you produce in part 2 for the taught master's is a dissertation, which is the discourse, whereas for a master's degree, at least as far as the UNZA is concerned, what you produce at the end is a thesis, is a tenet, ideally. Right? And really, if you look at different universities, they'll distinguish a dissertation and a thesis differently. In some institutions, it's the opposite of what the UNZA considers, right? But anyways, so there's that, right? I think there's a slide where we'll get to talk about some of the maybe interesting things that we have in this document. I will focus on maybe the parts that may be very, very relevant to you guys. I'm making the assumption here that last time I checked, I think almost everybody was enrolled into what do you call this? But this you were enrolled into the taught and dissertation option, really. Okay. Anyways, it's neither here nor there. I don't know where there we go. Okay, so we're gonna look at Administrivia, right? And then afterwards we shall look at the course introduction, like I said. And then because you guys are doing a taught and dissertation masters, we are going to attempt to have a few additional course activities in addition to these traditional lectures that we're going to be having. So I'd want for us to have a few paper reading sessions, for instance. And so the idea here is to give us maybe an understanding of what the expectation is going to be here during the paper reading sessions. And then I'll talk a bit about some academic activities, which incidentally is tied to what is happening tomorrow. I would like to encourage you. I've been sending messages. There's a lot of messages that have been flying around here. But I think one of the things I did a while back is I shared this live calendar. Now, this live calendar is just for the Department of, I guess, the School of Natural and Applied Sciences, really. But it turns out that there are other activities that happen elsewhere on campus, right? And specifically, I'm referring to oral exams. It turns out that during this period, so if you look at your sessional dates at the University of Zambia, you realize that there are certain key events that happen, right, within the year. One of those major events is to be the graduation ceremony, which is in May. And because the graduation ceremony is in May, typically right around this time, in fact, beginning January all the way up to somewhere around what do you call this? April, I want to say. March, April, somewhere there. There'll be a lot of what they call viva voce, right? Or your oral exams. So these are like public events. The general public is invited implicitly to attend these events, and by extension, obviously, you are also invited. Now, what you notice, right, is that in some instances you have very, very strange or obscure titles, right? Like one of our students, one of our doctoral students, Gray Chibabwe, is going to be talking about is it comparative analysis of single disease and multi-disease forecasting models using artificial intelligence for epidemic prediction. And maybe you are sitting there and you're thinking, is this really related to what is happening? Which I think it is, right? This is like health related, actually, if you think about it. But I think the point I was trying to put across is that some of these things that you probably come across, right, will appear like they have nothing to do with what you're doing. I mean, look at this this looks like biology or something, right? Phenotypic characterization, ethnobotany. This is botany types, and fungal disease susceptibility of, I don't know what that is here, but this is like biological sciences, I think it is. But it turns out that research is research, right? It doesn't matter whether somebody is doing a defense in zoology, in computer science, in health informatics, in human medicine. Science is science. It's just the same old thing, is it? If you remember your scientific method or something like that. So I would really encourage you to probably bookmark this thing. I don't know. I think we still have quite a number coming up in our department. So this is a complete schedule between now and, I don't know when this is here. Between now and this is, we have quite a number of things happening here. Notice here, we're going to eat into, we're going to go all the way up to somewhere around April something. April 8 is when we have our last kind of like presentation or something. So if I were you, right, I would really just attend, right? If you have time, just log in, because there's an option for you to attend these things virtually and just see what is happening. More importantly, you want to pay particular attention to the questioning, right? How the candidates are going to be quizzed ideally, because your time is coming as well. This is what typically happens, I suppose. And this is a process, by the way, right? It's I'll talk about the process, I guess, when we get to the postgraduate guidelines. So look at activities here, and I'll start with an introduction, right? So my name is Alaitin Piri, and I'm a senior lecturer, like I said, in the Department of Computing and Informatics. I've been with the UNZA for quite some time now. I joined the UNZA in 2017. So this is my 9th year. In December, I'll be clocking, is it 9 or 10 years? I don't know. Yeah, 9 years, I guess. Yeah, so I used to have a profile on the UNZA website, but there've been a number of changes on the profile. So what I normally do is I point people to our research group website. So you will find details about myself on our research group website. Our research group website is accessible on datalab.unza.zm. Right, so if you go to datalab.unza.zm, you'll find details about what we do in our lab, but I'll talk more about this. But I have a profile right here. Now, it turns out that prior to, I'm not share this actually, prior to joining the UNZA, I was a doctoral student at the University of Cape Town, where I was pursuing my doctoral studies in computer science. And then I think I still have my profile here. I hope I do. I don't know if it's still there. School of IT. Yeah, I do have a profile. It's quite nice of them to maintain my profile here, I guess. I don't know whether it's important, but you'll find my profile somewhere here, I think. There we go. I had a dedicated page. I don't know what they did here, but yeah, so I was a doctoral student. So I was doing my PhD between 2000 and I'll just say light on this UCT profile. I was doing my doctoral studies between 2014 all the way up to 2018. 2018 is when I graduated anyway, but I submitted my manuscript for examination in 2017 prior to moving back home. And before then, I was again at the University of Cape Town doing my master's, but I was affiliated. So when I was doing my doctoral studies, I was affiliated by the Hasso-Plattner Institute School for ICT4D, or Information and Communication Technologies for Development. And then when I was doing my master's, I was actually affiliated with the Digital Libraries Laboratory, right? I believe I probably have a profile or something somewhere. Hussein was my supervisor. So you'll find my profile on the DL lab right here. So I did my master's between 2011. I'll just say light on his MSc profile at UCT. In case you want to poke around and see what I've been up to or something. So I did my master's degree between 2011 and 2013. Okay. Yeah. And then before then, I worked for about 4, maybe 5 years for Celtel, Zen, and Airtel. So I was between 2007 all the way up to 2010, just before I went I moved to South Africa for school or something. And before then, I was actually a student at UNZA, right? So I did my undergraduate studies between 2003 all the way up to, I was graduating in 2007. There were a number of closures when I was a student, right? And so that's not about me, right? I would have really loved for this interaction to be in person so that we get to see each other, but I think we can do that next week, I think, when we have class. Now, before I talk about what we do in the lab, right, I thought maybe we'd do a little bit of introduction ourselves so that we know each other. And I've been told that we have quite a number of medical doctors and all that. So I'd really love to, I would love it if you could explicitly state what you've been up to, whether you're a medical doctor or not or something. Yeah, so we'll do this stepwise. I can use I'll use my Google Meet interface here to check the order of introductions. We'll start with Miss Betty Piri. I don't know if it's Dr. Betty Piri or something. So if you could introduce yourself by following these prompts here, that would be great. Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, hi, we can hear you. You're a bit faint though. I don't know if you can move the microphone closer to your mouth or something, or scream if you can manage.
Okay, can you get me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, so my name is Betty Piri. I'm a medical doctor by profession. I am doing my specialty training in psychiatry with Chainama Hills Hospital. So I guess my background is Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery, which I obtained from the Copperbelt University. So currently, like I said, I am doing my postgraduate specialty training with Zambia College of Medicine and Surgery. And I guess what I want to get from this course is I want to learn more on how to handle or manage data. Looking at our hospital currently, we are mostly paper-based. I guess I'm trying to see if we can move in a more digital way, and I guess also interact and also learn from others. I think that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. By the way, I prefer to be called Lighton. At this point, we are colleagues, I guess. So I don't know if you want us to be calling you Dr. Piri or something. Now, this is the
No, I
thing
think
here. It's or Dr. B Piri or something, because when you say Dr. Piri, it would be like maybe you're referring to me or something. Although I prefer Lighton. But what do we call you?
I think Betty is fine.
Okay. Now, where are you doing your residence from? For especially.
From Chainama Hills Hospital, just
Okay.
behind Blaze.
Yeah. Great stuff. I mean, I like the fact that you mentioned, from the outset that your experience has been that most of these systems you use are actually paper based, right? Which is quite sad. And incidentally, right? I must say this. I think I'm going to talk about this, but I must say this nonetheless. I'm going to be using examples that I have intimate knowledge about, and I do apologize upfront here. We've been since 2022. We collaborated with a number of entities, right? We collaborated with the University of Cape Town. So my dear colleague Zola Matlaza is one of the people we've collaborated with, him alongside his students at the University of Cape Town. But also the collaboration also involved the University Teaching Hospital, specifically adult hospital, Department of Radiology, right? So we've been working very closely with Dr. Ernesto Bizulu, who has since, by the way, he was also under the Zambia College of Medicine, but his specialty was radiology. So he's one of the very few radiologists that we have in Zambia, right? I don't know if Ramson or Dr. Mbewe has graduated yet, but he was maybe 2 years, if not 3 years behind Dennis or something. The thing about these specialties in medicine is they take a long time. I know it took Dennis almost 5 years or something, right? To be a qualified radiologist or something. And then Dr. Sunkutu has been around for a very long time. fully qualified radiologists here. And then there's Dr. Chibuta, who is also a resident. He rotates between Mainasoko and the investigating hospitals, adult hospital, depending on radiology. But one of the things we're doing in this project, right? And by the way, I'm going to share this link in case people are interested in this. I thought it was sad, by the way, that one of the electives is not really going to be offered, which is imaging informatics or something. We were doing quite a bit of imaging informatics centric work in this project. Okay, but we discovered, right? It turns out that maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but double back here. But we discovered that if you look at your typical radiological workflow, right? If you look at your typical radiological workflow, if I can maybe just I'll use this, I guess. All we discovered was that at the investigating hospitals, virtually all of these steps of the workflow are actually manual, right? And so some of the things that we ended up doing here is we were essentially working towards trying to automate some of these workflows, right? And this has resulted in a number of things. Like there's a PACS platform. This is still work in progress. There's quite a number of things happening here, right? NETD. I don't know if I will be able to PACS. Let me see if I can find this, but I can show it to you later on, I guess. There's supposed to be anyway. I'll show it to you later when we get to that stage, because I'm going to talk about this anyway. So we were working towards like automating most of these radiological workflows, right? And this speaks to the point you raised where you're saying most of the things are actually paper-based. It's quite sad. I'll give you an example of medical images, right? They kind of have a system in place. It's not completely paper-based, but the system they have in place is where when an examination is conducted on a patient, let's say generating a chest X-ray, for instance, you burn it on CD and then you give the patient, right? So that when there's supposed to be a repeat test or they're supposed to be attended to a review of some sort, they're supposed to come with the CD. But the challenge with that is you have situations or instances where, CDs will be scratched and all those things. And they have what they call the library, where they actually pile up CDs, right? Which is quite sad, and then as recently as last year, so this project started in 2022, and I'll talk a bit more about this, right? As recently as last year, we collaborated with the Cancer Disease Hospital, and specifically we were working with Dr. Lambert, right? And we discovered really that because I was working with a group of students that were working towards trying to automate generation of reports, and workflows there manual. But I'll talk more about this. So thanks, Betty. Really appreciate that. Maybe we can move on to our next colleague, and Ishmael Gumbo. Yes.
Hello, colleagues. Doc, am I audible?
You are audible, yes.
All right, thank you. My name is Ishmael. Gumbo is my surname. Professionally, I have a degree in biomedical sciences from the University of Zambia. What I'm currently up to, I'm lecturing in biomedical sciences at Harvard University. Yeah, and what I hope to get from this course are pretty much similar to what Betty mentioned. Yeah, there's quite a big problem out there that much of stuff is quite analog, but when you look at the current trend in terms of where the world is going, things are getting digital. So pretty much I believe these are skills that will help you really enhance the various aspects in terms of medical related issues. Yeah, so pretty much that.
All right. Thank you so much, Ishmael. I like the part where you are explicitly mentioning that the world is going digital, and whenever there's mention of the world going digital, I guess in this day and age, everybody starts thinking about AI, right? And I want to leave you with his thought here, at least as it relates to what he just raised here, analog versus digital. The fact that there's a limit as to what it is we can do to take advantage of the full power of artificial intelligence, right? In part because most of the data that we work with in this part of the world, in this country actually, is not really organized. And I think at some point I'll probably talk about this in one of the modules that we're going to cover in the course. um, I think it's an opportunity. The rise of AI actually gives us an opportunity to seriously think about how we can effectively and efficiently organize, data generated in this particular case in the health sector. You know, uh, Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, thank you very much. I guess we can move on to Julius Mooney.
Good afternoon, Doc, and good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Oh, sorry, so now it's good evening. It's already 18. My name is Julius Simon, like the way the doctors said. I would say I'm a medical student. I'm a final year medical student, and also a final year Masters of Public Health. So the reason why I opted to, or I'm very much eager or interested in this program is knowing that what Dr. Betty has already mentioned, that in the practice of medicine, there's a lot of issues that happens, especially in the issue of patient's data information. For instance, I can even give an example. So this is the patient who's been managed with the problem of diabetes, I would say. So diabetes, you find that is a very big file the patient will be carrying every time it comes to the patient to the hospital. So there'll be a point or maybe a point where the patient loses the file, and it will be very difficult to track the information. So having said that, health informatics, I hope and I believe that it will equip me with skills in health information systems and also the digital solution to improve hospital efficiency. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thanks. I mean, I like the emphasis on the skills, right? Because many a times, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? What I've noticed in the years I've been interacting with postgraduate students, and of course, my experience is biased towards students we attract in the Department of Computing and Informatics, and I've provide the courses. But what I've noticed is that for the most part, the interest is always in the qualification, which there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because maybe the qualification is going to give you an edge, insofar as promotions are concerned and all that. But I always remind people enrolled in these advanced degrees that that they are numbered, that you are going to be numbered amongst very, very few select individuals, right, that are in a position to effect change ideally. So it would be nice really if you could put the skills you're going to acquire by the time you're done with this to good use, right? It's quite sad. I mean, we train quite a number of people, right? Important people holding important positions out there in industry, and yet the progress here in terms of progression of digital footprint here is not as much as we would expect, right? But anyways, that's fine. Thank you very much, Mr. Julius. I guess we can proceed to Luyando Siluizia.
Hi everyone, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Hi.
Okay, my name is Administrivia. I have a degree in information systems and technology from University of Lusaka, and I'm currently working for Bank of Zambia under data management. yeah, for I think 2 years. So why I specifically joined this course was because looking at what we've been working on at the bank, I think it's also something that I would like to see in the health sector. And I've always wanted to study something health related because I've noticed that Zambian hospitals are really analog. So I think I want to take it up to myself so that I can better these systems, because health is wealth, and yeah, that's something I look forward to working on. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. For a second there, Leandro, I was almost thinking, wait a minute, maybe Leandro is thinking that he's supposed to be he's thinking that this is a data, a data science or AI program, right? When it's health informatics, but I think you just clarified here by mentioning that you have an interest in health, which is commendable, I guess. Great stuff. There's something interesting about, if you look at the proliferation of technology, right, in the country, what you begin to notice is that there are certain key sectors that are lagging behind, like health, for instance. If you compare health with what's been happening in the fintech sector, for instance, if you look at fintechs, the fintech sector is miles ahead of the health sector. And the reason is simple, right? There's more money to be made there. If you just look up the sheer number of fintechs that are out there in Zambia, you'll be shocked, right? Hobbiton, Patumba or something. In fact, if you go on your phone here and you go to, I don't know if it's I think it should be *115 or something, on whatever network you're on, you begin to notice that there are all sorts of funny services. Like for MTN, for instance, I'm seeing Congola and savings, and then under that there's Kwanisa na Momo, there's Congola, there's savings, there's village banking. If you go under Congola, there's a whole slew of entities, right? Kasaka loans, extra cash loans, Castata, Zfin loans. But the point I'm trying to put across here is, in as much as we're training a whole slew of experts, right? Like we're training people like you, but it turns out that, or people that are doing mainstream computing centric courses, it turns out that the interest is more on or in the sectors where there's money. There's no money in the health sector, sadly, right? Because the health sector, for the most part, is predominantly powered, at least in Zambia, by government, right? So most of these entities that are run by government usually will not really have a lot of money, unless if you maybe start considering donor funding and all that. But that's what's sustainable, right? So it's quite commendable, I guess. I'm a recent convert myself, especially when so the enterprise medical imaging in Zambia project really started. It started informally, right? So Dr. Ernest Obizul is a very good friend of mine. We've known each other since our high school days. We were together at UNZA, although I went into the physical science stream, which was stream B, and he was in stream A, and then he went off to Ridgeway, right? But talking to him, it just ignited that interest or something. But anyways, I digress. We can move on to, I guess, the next person. According to my screen here, it's Malifa Mwendelema.
Hi,
good
evening.
Good evening, hi.
Okay, so my name is Malifa Mwendelema, and I have a bachelor's degree in microbiology from the Copperbelt University, and I have also a background in food safety. I'm currently working as a production and quality officer at a manufacturing company called Forest Africa. And why you hope to get this? Why I hope to study the health informatics is just to get to learn modern ways in which we can analyze, collect data, and most importantly, interpret the health-related issues. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks a lot. What exactly is your role at this manufacturing company you work for? What's the name again, Mister?
It's called Forest Africa Zambia. My role is to manage production and quality.
Wonderful, wonderful. Usually, when you work for such entities, I'm sure most of the processes are automated, so you probably use a lot of information systems there. I imagine it's unlike places like hospitals or something. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And what are we calling you? Are we calling you Miss or Mister or something? You prefer
Miss Malifa.
Miss Malifa. All right. That's wonderful. So we can proceed to Tinta Siamuzulu.
Good evening. My
Good
name
evening.
is Mutinta Siamzulu. I hold a bachelor's degree in medicine and surgery from the Copperbelt University. I'm a medical doctor by profession, and I'm currently based at Ngungu Mini Hospital as a senior resident medical officer and medical officer in charge of the facility. And what I hope to get from this program is to acquire skills in computing and informatics, and also learn how to integrate information with the current health system. And also, because our systems are mostly paper-based, especially under covered districts, because even the implementation of smart care has been a challenge in almost all the 44 facilities under covered districts. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Now I want to say something. By the way, Miss, I don't know what do we call you, Dr. Siamzulu, or I don't know.
Just call me Mutinta.
Yeah, Tinta, when you mentioned Ngungu, right? I was like, this has to be Kawe, because I remember exploring Ngungu here. I do a lot of crazy things sometimes myself. So I have nothing. But there's a bit of data here, I guess. But I dump things on YouTube a lot, right? So I have a vlog channel, and I remember, I think I've explored Ngungu somewhere, right? Yeah, there we go, Ngungu Kawe. That was 3 years ago or something. I was pretty excited. This time around, 3 years ago, I was working from Kawe for a long period of, I think it was a week or two or something. It was 2022. And I explored in Ngungu. I do this a lot here. But also, right, Kawe was recently in the news, right? It's crazy here. And I'm sitting here and I'm wondering if these cases of lead poisoning or something are still a bit of an issue in Kawe or something. I'm just curious. There was a DW. There've been a number of documentaries of late, actually, apparently. Anyways, now I wanted to say something important here. You know that if you look at the range of causes in the program, right? We're going to jump ahead here and come here. What you begin to notice is, if you look at the cause combinations, right? The things that you're going to be introduced to here. In as much as not all of you are going to be in a position where you can actually write computer programs and all that, but it turns out that some of the skills you're going to acquire are going to enable you to be able to clearly specify what you want. And I say this because you mentioned that, you said 44 hospitals or something, or health facilities are not connected and stuff. I don't know if I'm butchering the number. How many facilities did you mention?
Yeah, so we have 44 facilities under Kawe district.
Yeah.
And I think amongst those 44, there should be, I think, less than 5 that have actually managed to implement smart care. So most of them, it's been a challenge, and they are paper-based. So you find data is missing, we can't integrate certain information and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was going to say that, I don't know what's happening here. I was going to say that I'm looking for the master facility list here. I was going to say that .gov.zm. I was going to say that you should be in a position where, and it died. I don't know what happened to the master facility list. I know it was master facility list.zm. you should be equipped with the necessary skills that will enable you to specify, right, requirements to developers to say, this is what we want, these are the challenges we have, right? Making it possible for you to master facility list. I don't know what happened to the master facility list here in Zambia, but making it possible for you to maybe improve what you're just talking about here. You know, this is insane. I normally pull I pull a lot of information from the master facility list here, and master facility list, and I'm surprised that it's not indexed or something. I know it's MFL. It sits on the MFL domain here. I'm still not looking for the one that is on GitHub. I don't know, maybe the one on GitHub has a direct link here. There we go. This is what I wanted. So, but this is what I did though. It didn't work. Okay. So I mean, imagine, so if Kawe, right? Kawe, which is like a pretty reasonable time here. If Kawe is experiencing that, right? Imagine what is happening with these other facilities, right? Elsewhere. You know, like I remember this one time I was in Nyanje or something, right? In Nyanje, I went to visit Nyanje Mission Hospital or something. It's very sad, really. You know, I was there again. It was 3 years ago or something. I do this a lot. Very sad, the things that you see around here. Here's to hoping that we will see beyond the money, most of us, right? And we'll try and see if we can effect change or something like that, you know? If we can effect change, I don't know. Yeah, it's 46 now, by the way, apparently, according to the master facility list. I don't know if this is, but anyways, that's fine. So that's that. Thanks, Tinta. Wonderful stuff. And then we have Mwansa Chikwe. I don't know if Mwansa is able to unmute his microphone or something. Okay, if not, maybe they have challenges with you're still muted, by the way, Mwansa. We can go to Uchi Tembo.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Uchi Tembo. My background is a bachelor's degree in midwifery. So I'm a registered midwife. And then what I hope to gain from this is just the skills in health informatics and data management, just to enable me to at least be part of the solutions to the problems that we are currently facing, especially in rural and remote areas. As I work from Kalumbira, a rural health center, so I've seen some of the challenges that we are currently going through, especially data management. So I hope to be part of the solution. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks a lot. I mean, Kalumbira is one of those well-resourced parts of the country. There's a lot of money flowing from that part of the. I'm sure your health facility, in as much as it's rural, probably there are a lot of donations coming in from those mining companies. But you know, I was going to say that you probably want to next term, you probably want to choose telemedicine and mobile health, right? Especially if you're passionate about low resource settings, right? So how do we improve service delivery, especially as it relates to information systems when you're dealing with low resource settings? And low resource settings really can be viewed from so many different perspectives. So you're looking at parts or rather settings where there's a limitation in terms of electricity, for instance, right? Connectivity in terms of the internet is a problem. So what do we do, right? You probably want to look into, you probably want to mark this. I don't know if you've already, I don't know if it's an option here, but probably want to mark this. Or even if you're not marking it here, but as you're thinking about what to do in term 2, you know, what's going to be introduced to you here, you want to think long and hard about potentially choosing what do you call this, choosing a topic, dissertation topic that is going to be more aligned with what you're passionate about. My experience really, having supervised a number of students, right? I've supervised quite a number of students actually. If you go to our research group website, I'll talk more about this actually, but I'm preempting this conversation. If you go to our research group website, what you begin to notice is that, what's happening here? What you begin to notice is that we've had a number of students, right? A number of students enroll into, I mean, rather, I've supervised a number of students ideally. I don't know what's happening here, but I think I've lost my connection on my other device, and I'd much rather do this. I don't know what's happening to my research group website, but anyway, so there's that here. I don't know if we've left out anybody. I know there was supposed to be, oh, he's logged out. There was a colleague who was supposed to introduce himself. Okay, so I want to double back here, right? And just briefly, now what I'm doing here, I want to be upfront, is I'm advertising. Specifically, when you get to do this course here, and I'll talk more about CSC 6000, right? Which is this dissertation component. The idea behind the dissertation is you work under the supervision of somebody, right? You work under the supervision of somebody. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that in the recent past, or as recently as I don't think I would say recent anyway. Back in 2018, 2019, I founded or I established this research group, and it turns out that this notion of research groups is not really foreign, right? Universities will generally have academics start to set up research groups, and the idea behind the research group is it's this collective of like-minded individuals whose focus, in our case, for instance, is to perform research, right? So what you notice is on our research group website, we explicitly mentioned that we focus our attention on three main areas, right? You know, so the things that we do are within the confines of data mining, digital libraries or data management, and technology-enhanced learning. Okay, and if you start looking at when you start looking at the website itself, I don't know what happened here. It seems to be offline here. But if you get to the website and you start looking at pages like the project page, you notice that we've actually been working towards a number of projects. I'm going to cruise through the things that are not important. Like for instance, we are working on problems that are related to road safety in Zambia. Okay, our interest here is to try and see, you know, what it is we can do insofar as research is concerned to try and improve road safety in Zambia, right? So we are doing all sorts of things like automatically detecting potholes on the roads, for instance, or other road defects. So Chomo, for instance, is looking at how to build AI models to automatically detect road defects, right? Rattling and, you know, cracks and all those things. You know, if you've ever driven to parts of Lusaka, like Cathedral Hill, for instance, where there are a lot of trees, you notice that the roads are actually messed up, right? Roads are messed up because the roots will actually, you know, protrude deep down under the paved road, and then, you know, cracks develop or something like that. So those are the things that he's looking at. And then Henry is trying to do something different. He's looking at detecting road controls, right? So signage. The idea here is simple, right? If you move around the streets of Lusaka, for instance, you begin to notice that, you know, some signs are not very visible. In fact, we've had very weird things like people have been killed, right? Run over by trains and all those things. And so what we're doing is trying to analyze these traffic controls with the hope that will improve road safety. The other controls is looking at these road markings, right? If you've ever driven through roads like a few road, for instance, you notice that the road markings, I mean, you have 3 lanes, but the road markings are virtually, they're not visible, right? So we're using AI to do that. And then at some point, you know, we started looking into what we can do to try and make legal and legislative documents more open and accessible. Okay, so using AI to kind of like summarize this document. And the idea is simple here. If you go to, let's say, if you go to Parliament, right? Parliament.gov.zm, and it's supposed to be actually www here. You go to parliament.gov.zm and you attempt to read one of these statutory instruments or acts of parliament. It's not very intuitive, right? You begin to notice that these things are written in such a way that they use a lot of technical terms, making it difficult for a lay person to understand what the document is all about. In fact, even if you've been to school like you guys, it will take a while before you actually understand what is in a document like this in some instances. But also, these are long documents, is it? So if you look at this, the Zambia Institute of Procurement and Supply Act of 2025, I didn't know there was this new act here. You notice that it's 40 pages, right? It's a long document. It's like, who is going to have time to look at this? It turns out there are some statutory instruments and acts that are specialized. Some are so generic that they affect most of us in society, right? Like there's a recent statutory instrument where, I don't know if you know about this, but ACT headphones. So if you're a pedestrian, right, there's a law that has been passed, is it? There's an SI. So you're not allowed, legally, you're not allowed to put on like headsets when you're crossing the road. You're committing an offense, right? You can be fined, you can be jailed, and all that. Now, if you look at this SI, you notice that it's important. It affects virtually everybody, right, in the Republic, but very few people are able to understand that content. And so what these guys were doing is, what we're doing in this project is trying to build models, AI models, to summarize these documents so that it's a lot easier for a lay person to understand. And we also do a lot of educational data mining, in part because my doctoral studies were in technology enhanced learning, but also because I work in the education sector, right? So I have a particular interest in certain problems that I've noticed in my 9 years of working at UNZA. I'll give you an example of a problem we grappled with: high failure rate in a certain course. And so what we did was we built a machine learning model that, in essence, was able to predict, right? It tells us when you have 100, maybe 200 students come in first year, it tells you to say, these students are more likely to fail this course. The beauty with that is we are saving government money, because most of these students are given loans by the government. Government has got to recoup. And the easiest way of government recouping is these people have got to be offloaded onto society so that they start earning money and deductions kick in. So we built a classical machine learning model that does that sort of prediction. And then I have a particular interest in Wikipedia content contribution. If you go to Wikipedia and you just look up Chainama Hills Hospital, and you check Wikipedia, you notice that there's a Wikipedia page quite all right, but it's not up to date, is it? It's a very short page. Look at this. It's a stub, actually. You just have a short paragraph here, and then you have the history, and that's it. When in actual fact, Chainama is such an important place. It's supposed to have a lot more details. And so what we've been doing here, I've been working with a number of students to try and see if we can improve Wikipedia content contribution. Again, we're doing a lot of mining and all that. And I know this has nothing to do with health here, right? Same as our Zambia National Electronic Thesis and Dissertation Portal project, where we are trying to work towards improving the online visibility of content produced by higher education institutions. There's a method to the madness. Most of these problems we are solving, right, they're somewhat aligned to the things we are going to be covering in health data management, because data is data, right? It doesn't matter if you're looking at educational data whether you're analyzing data of roads, right? The set of roads which are images, it's still data, right? And when you have data, it has got to be managed. You've got to ensure that you facilitate easy access to that data. You've got to archive that information. You've got to create that data somehow. So these are the things we're going to be looking at in the course anyway. And then there's this project. I'm probably going to carve out a number of things from this project, our enterprise medical imaging in Zambia project, because it's really the closest full-fledged project that I've worked on that is related to what we're going to be doing. It's literally confined in the health sector. Incidentally, there's another project I'm working on with a colleague, Pierre Mbewe, and I'm probably going to sneak it in. I don't know how I forgot about it. It's still work in progress anyway. So we got a little funding from the Directorate of Research and Development to work on to work towards. There's a website, I think it is from Venzu. I don't know if it's there here, but yeah, I don't know if it's there, but this is quite sad. I really wanted to showcase. I wanted to showcase the website itself. Website of the project we're working on, right? I don't know why it's not. It's not there. I really wanted to showcase what we are doing here, but it appears this thing is not working anyway. That's fine. That is fine. Or maybe I can do it too. That's okay. So there's a project. It's called Med Assist, and what we are doing is, and I think maybe I should be able to access it here. Is it? I'll just go to sites.google like this, and then I'll just say I'll search for Med Assist from here. I should be able to get it here. I don't know if it's indexed. Nope, it's not, which is quite sad. There's supposed to be a Med Assist website here, Med Assist. I think it should be Med Assist actually. Just /Med Assist or something, I don't know. It's been a while since I did this, but I will look up the the site itself, and then I'll let you guys know once I manage to. There we go. I found it. So we have this project we're working on. It's funded by the Directorate of Research and Graduate Studies. So I'm working with my dear colleague Piela, and then we have these students. We got a little funding, just a little funding. And what you notice if you go to details of what we've been doing here is that we are essentially building a lab management system, right? Trying to facilitate easy access to lab results and stuff. Anyways, so there's that. Hope this is making sense. I think it is. I can just go back to, there we go. Yeah, so I'm gonna throw in that, the Med Assist as well. It is a classic example of, information system used in the health sector. And whenever you have information systems being used anywhere, actually, there's data being generated. Most of these applications are actually data-driven applications, right? Meaning that whatever actions are being performed using the system, there's either there's a couple of key things that are happening behind the scenes, is it? You're either creating the data, right? You're creating data, right? You're managing data, or indeed you are accessing data actually. And you notice when we start looking at SQL that you can actually map these onto your SQL statements, right? So your create here is your insert statement. Insert into table, blah, blah, blah. Your manage here, managing may involve updating. Update table, blah, 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 or delete, right? Table or something. And then accessing, you are just selecting data, right? So when I went here, and we'll talk about this, I just thought I'll try and contextualize some of the things we're talking about. When we went to, I don't know where I was here, but when we went to the master facility list, if you remember, what is happening, and I want to use that as an example actually, but where to find it is a problem, I guess. Master facility list, .moh.gov.zm, and this is HTTPS. So if you go to the master facility list, or what I'm doing here, right, by just going to mfl.moh.gov.zm is implicitly behind the scenes, I'm doing a query, right? I'm doing a select. I'm accessing this information. Is it? I want to check health facilities where my parents live in Chipata district, right? I want to check how many health facilities are there. The moment I do a filter here, behind the scenes, there's probably a select star from master facility table or something where province is equal to Eastern and district is equal to Chipata or something. And then I'm like, oh, there are 39, public operating facilities and 7 private ones, a total of 46 or something. And I can have a sense of where they are. All of this data, in other words, all of this here is sitting somewhere. It was created at some point. It's sitting somewhere. And when I'm interacting with this application, I'm issuing a select statement. I'm extracting that data from a database or something like that. But before I can start accessing this information, it has got to be created, is it? So whenever there's a new health facility, like a private hospital has been set up in Chipata, an administrator for this master facility list application will log in the backend and click a button, will type in some form, new hospital, this is a name, this is a province, this is a district, you say update or add. When you do an add, what you're doing is an insert. Now, when you're doing inserts, sometimes you make a mistake, is it? Like maybe a typo in terms of the name of the facility. Instead of Ngungu, maybe you enter Ngungi. So what do? You access that record and you update it, is it? It's like update. What you're doing when you update is you're issuing an update statement. In other instances, let's say a hospital has been decommissioned, it's no longer there, a private hospital is shut down, they've shut their doors here. You can delete that record. But anyways, I'm just saying here that irrespective of what sort of system you're looking at, you're doing the same thing. In fact, the things we're going to be talking about can easily be related to what happens when you're using Facebook or Twitter. You go to Facebook and you're adding a friend, you're creating records associated with your account. You're changing your educational background on Facebook. You're updating your record, is it? You're telling people that you've now started doing your Master of Health Informatics or something like that. But anyways, so we do quite a bit here. And again, like I'm saying here, I'm recruiting. So if it turns out that there's some aspects of what we do in the Data Lab Research Group, right? Especially as they relate to imaging informatics, for instance, please let me know so that next year, when the time comes for you to come up with a proposal, because that's what you'll be expected to do, we can maybe work together here, right? Anyways, so is that. Now, unless if there are any questions about, we're just doing introductions here, but in terms of the course itself, right? Health data management, which is CSC 5541, it turns out that, before I start looking at the key learning outcomes here, It turns out that it's a part of your Master of Health Informatics program. We already know. One of the key things about the program here is that it's a taught. I think we can agree in principle here that taught and dissertation masters. So if you go in your guidelines that I spoke about earlier, you go under here on page number 13. So if I go to page number 13 here, I don't know if this is page number 13. Here we go. You have details about what a taught masters is all about, is it? They'll tell you that okay, these are things to do with eligibility to apply for admission in the taught program here, but you're already eligible because you've already started classes here. But we'll go to the structure here, right? You notice here that you, as a student, you pursue your program approved by the School Board of Graduate Studies, which is the School of Natural and Applied Sciences in the particular case, right? And at some point, you present yourself for relevant examinations. And again, I'll talk about the sessional dates here. So sometime in, is it April, May, somewhere there, you're supposed to come and sit for exams ideally. Now, here's the thing. The program you're enrolled into consists of two parts. Part one is what you're doing right now. Part two is what you're going to do beginning next year, assuming you progress successfully, right? If you pass all the courses. In principle, part one is undertaken over a period of 1 year, which is 12 months, right? This is full-time study for you. But if you're doing this under part-time or distance, you can spread it across. You can spread the damage. So you can do it within 18 months or something. Okay? So 1.5 years ideally. Now, key thing here, it will comprise, part one comprises of coursework required by respective schools or departments. In your case, you are required to make sure that in part one, you accumulate a total of 180. And no, this is not 180. This is wrong. I made a mistake here. It's 120 credit units. I do apologize. This is 120. And the 120 comes from the fact that part one accounts for half the credit units. For you to be awarded the Master of Health Informatics, you need to accumulate a total of 240 credit units. Okay? 120 or half of those credit units come from the coursework. The other half will come from the dissertation you're going to do in part two. Now, these 120, I'm going to cut this across here, put it here. These 120 credit units are spread into term 1 and term 2. Okay? Term 1 comprises of core courses or mandatory courses and elective courses. Term 2 also comprises of core courses and elective courses. For term 1, you have a total of 3 core courses or mandatory courses, and then you have the option to choose electives. Now, here's the thing: if you're counting here, you notice that all of our courses are half courses in the department, right? For the health informatics program, a half course has 15 credit points. A full course, which spans a year, has twice the number of points, which is 30 credit points. All our courses are half courses, if you've noticed, right? So you do them in term 1 or term 2 or something. Now, if a single course has 15 credit points, you begin to notice that for you to accumulate half the points this term, because this term you're going to do half of 120, which is 60. You need 4 courses. In term 2, you will again need 4 courses. Okay? So in other words, in term 1, you must make sure that you attend classes and attempt assessments, and sit for the exam in 4 courses. So that's 1, 2, 3 courses and any elective that you wish to choose. Now, the choice of the elective is dependent on your interests. And this is me telling you that your interest should start right now. Your interest, if I were you, your interest can be looked at from so many different perspectives, right? Your interest can be aligned with your current career, or your interest can be aligned with your future career aspirations or goals, or your interest can be aligned with what you're going to do in part 2. Okay? So if you're already thinking, oh, I think I find image informatics really interesting, right? You're going to choose courses that are going to enable you, that are going to equip you with the skills necessary for you to do part 2. In fact, that's the whole point of doing coursework, right? We are preparing you for what's coming in part 2. Okay? Hopefully this is making sense here. So 60 points here, 60 points here. All right? These, by the end of the year, you accumulate the 120 required. If you don't accumulate these, you can't graduate, right? Until you accumulate these things. And I'm saying this because last year, we had a student in one of our mainstream courses who, unfortunately, because the system, his argument was the system allowed me to, so he only enrolled into 7 courses. Because he enrolled into 7 courses, I mean, we had a discussion and we recommended for him to progress to part 2 because he's a really good student. He just made a mistake. But because he enrolled into 7 courses, he's only accumulated this is 105 credit points instead of 120. So this year, in addition to the research, he has got to do that one course so that ultimately he accumulates the required 120 points. I hope this is clear. So anyways, so you are, this is wrong here. It's supposed to be, you are required to take a total of 8 courses. Okay? And the total number of hours, again, this is wrong here. And the total of credit units for the total component is 120. I'll fix this, right? And then in part 2, you're going to accumulate 120 points. Now, the reason I was saying, but by the way, you know what, guys, colleagues, I'm probably also eating into the part where we're supposed to have a discussion of what do you call this? The guidelines, right? Because I'm referring to the guidelines here, in here, right? There are other things that play here. Attendance, right? You're supposed to attend classes here. You're supposed to sit for the exam here. And then in part 2, you submit a proposal, and then you do your research and all those things here. This is, I do encourage you to read through this document. You download it and read it through. You can read it like the Bible. You don't have to read all 108 pages, but focus on the more important things, the things that talk about coursework for now. Okay? And stuff like that. But anyways, so when you're done with part 1, and here's the thing, part 1 is easy, right? Part 1 is easy because the timelines are fixed. It's like, we know that you know, right? You yourselves know that whether you like it or not, you shall have to, where is that? You'll be expected to sit for the exam, is it? Whether you like it or not, unfortunately. This is how this thing works here. It sounds a bit harsh here, but I thought I had the session date somewhere, but I'm just going to 26, 2025, like that. So whether you like it or not, you know that you are going to write exams during this period here. Between the 27th of April and the 11th of May, this is when you'll be writing your exams, right? In part 2, however, it's open-ended. When you're doing research, some people slow down, some people get stuck at the proposal stage. For some people, life happens. I guess, more important things, pop up and you abandon school or something. If you look at my research group website, you notice that there are some students that have been supervising since 2019. They haven't, this is masters, right? They haven't graduated. The reason I'm saying this is, in as much as they are telling you here that in the document here, they will tell you that the total duration for, let's look at the structure for a taught and dissertation masters. I don't know why they don't have years here. I'm going to look for a number of years, but they'll tell you it's not PhD, 4 to 5 PhD. It's supposed to be two years, I believe, right? For this, let's see if I can find it here. Here's like 6 years. I don't know. I can't seem to find where it is here, but duration. Not PhD, but duration. I don't understand why the duration for. Okay, so this is master of masters by research. I'm looking for taught. I don't know why it's not here, but in principle it's supposed to be nominally. It's weird that it's not there. There's usually supposed to be a duration somewhere. Not part 1. Maybe if I say period of study or something, I'll be able to find page 62. Okay, this is good. Period of. Okay, so if you look at the professional masters, they don't have periods here, which is so part 1 is 12 months, but they don't have a period for. Yeah, part 2. There we go. Part 2 shall be undertaken over a period of 12 months, right, or full-time study, or 18 months, right, part-time study or something. But the problem is, because this is self-paced, you have a situation where, some people will just take their time, you have to collect data and you're not collecting data, and you have a situation where it's taking you 2 years or something, which is why some of the forms you will find in here are forms like this, extension of study or something. Right? When you exhaust your 2 years, ideally you're supposed to finish this in 2 years. If you don't manage to finish your research or your part 2, in your case, by end of 2027, then you apply, right, for an extension or something like that, and you justify and all those things. But anyways, I'm going to pause here and just find out, because there were a number of questions, and I'm going to preempt some of these questions. There were a number of questions to do with course combination, Lighton, and all those things. First, I wanted to mention that the reason why we haven't fixed your portal yet to reflect the actual courses that you're interested in enrolling into is because there's a lot of confusion with a number of our programs, our students. So you can't you can't re-register into different courses. Apparently, either the assistant dean or myself, or perhaps the head of department, can do this. And so what I've resorted to doing is I'll put together a spreadsheet and request that you all individually specify which courses you want to be fixed on your portal. And then we'll fix that on your behalf. The beauty with the portal is that for now, just make sure you have 8 courses. But the beauty with the portal is that it's only going to be useful when we write the exam or something, when we're entering grades and all that, right? For now, just make sure that you attend classes for all the courses that you're interested in. I'm going to pause here and ask if there are any questions about this. I'll also fix the course codes here. It's off. Okay, is this making sense?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That's wonderful. So term 1, you choose 4 courses. Okay. In term 2, you must also choose 4 courses. You don't have a choice for the core courses. I think it's a couple of interesting things happening here. I have quite a soft spot for the health sector. The years I've been working with radiologists has just evoked this really strange, bizarre interest in the health sector here. You'll notice there's some interesting courses here. I like the fact that there's a big data analytics in healthcare, that course that you're going to do next, next term, which is quite interesting. And I think I've expressed interest to actually take you in health informatics standards and interoperability as well. I don't know who's going to be teaching this next time. But anyway, so these are term 2 courses. Again, you choose the core courses, which are 3, and then you choose 1. Now, there's something else that is interesting here, right? In cases where we're offering multiple electives, what you can do, right, is you can attend those classes if you want. If you're just interested in learning, you can attend those classes, but not sit for the exam. In some instances, actually, people have sat for the exam. I don't know to what extent that would be helpful. Maybe on your transcript when you're applying to do a PhD and that course appears, perhaps it will give you an edge or an advantage. I don't know. It happens sometimes. But at the very least, if let's say you are interested in both, biostatistics and research methods and ethics and legal issues in health informatics, then it's like, well, you can sit in these other electives, provided there's no clash or something, so that you probably are more knowledgeable in both areas or something like that. And then in part 2 is going to be CSC 6000, so the dissertation itself. Now, the dissertation can be tricky here, right? It's split into 2 parts ideally. The first part is you prepare your proposal, you defend your proposal actually. We organize proposal defense sessions ideally. And then based on your interest, you are paired up with a supervisor, a person who's going to guide you in the whole process, making sure that they course correct in case of an issue here. And I think what makes this program quite interesting is we're actually planning to make sure that we have principal supervisors and co-supervisors from both sides of these 2 disciplines, is it? One for public health or something, or from Ridgeway, and then the other one from computing and informatics. Okay, so typically the procedure is such that you, if I can remember the steps here, these are outlined, I think, in the guidelines for CSC 6000, right? So you start off with a proposal, okay? And then after the proposal stage, you'd be paired up, right? Supervisor allocation or something like that. And then what you start doing is you start, once your proposal is approved, you do things like ethical clearance or something, right? The usual things, is it? I don't know if you've been at UNZA before, but hopefully they'll teach you these things in the ethics. I think is this the ethics course? I don't know what it is here. Hopefully they'll teach you this in the ethics and legal issues in health informatics, or rather in biostatistics and research methods. But you do ethical clearance. So in essence, once your proposal goes through, you would submit it to one of the research ethics committees. It's a whole process, right? So if you go to graduate.unza.zm under research and then ethics, you would come here and I'll pause. Ishmael, you have a question?
Yes, please, Doc.
Yes.
Just a quick one.
Yes.
I've noticed that research methods and statistics is an elective course, of which I truly believe that there are specific basic concepts that one needs to amass from there in preparations for part 2, which is the dissertation and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know how that really works out in a case that somebody does not take that elective. I don't know whether there will be leeway that information and other stuff is conveyed. But anyways, just throwing it in the air, I would love you to clarify on that aspect.
Yeah, and I mean, you raised an important point actually, because so I'm not really sure about the profile of the students we're attracting. Maybe the assumption was that the vast majority of people that are enrolling into this, this program will already have some experience in research. I don't know. Could have been an error in terms of the assumption. Incidentally, if you look at all our other programs, observe, for all our other programs, this is health informatics. For all our other programs, like this is data science, you notice the first one, 5019, research methodology. Cybersecurity, first one, research methodology. This is core course, right? You notice the type here, it's a core course. The other program have AI, research methodology, it's a core course, right? Computer science, I don't know why it's not here. 5019 here, it's a core course. So the point I'm putting across here is, I mean, I guess we can have a conversation with our colleagues from Ridgeway as a department to find out why this is the case, why this was an elective, because there's obviously a lot of thinking that went into this. My suspicion, my educated guess here would be that it's possible that the assumption was that the people coming through here have some experience with research, but I don't think that's the case, because unless if things have changed. I know close friends of mine that did medicine and they never did a capstone project. I did a capstone project, right, at 4th year, a research project, so I had an idea of what research was all about. But for now, to be on the safe side, if I were you, I would actually I would actually sit in on the biostatistics and research methods course. Really, you probably want
to. Sorry, bro. Yeah, I'm actually taking that course, but then I think these are a couple of thoughts that popped up. I think I remember inquiring from you, but I think the feedback you gave was not quite satisfying. Then furthermore, I think another question. I don't know, maybe I was misled or something. Looking at the course structure, it does not look as much appetizing as I expected.
Right.
In the sense that I expected maybe something a bit more aligned with data science, but specifically for health. So I don't know how much of programming and of course a lot of big data analytics do we have on this program away from just the management aspect, because from the look of things, it's more on managing already built systems, okay, and like just get onto the groundwork, building these systems and so on. So maybe how much of that do we have?
Well, so already this term, for instance, when I start walking through what we're going to be doing in the course introduction, in here, there's actually a little bit of programming. So SQL, there's a general introduction to Python, right? So already in health data management, we do that. So there's that. And then in here as well, you get to do that in big data analytics and healthcare. And you notice this is a core course, quite intensive actually, intensively here, right? So already you have like 2 courses, I think, where you do quite a bit of analytics type stuff. I'm not sure about, well, there's some mild programming, I guess, here when you start looking at, standards that are used, HL7, DICOM, and interoperability, but not as extensive. So I guess it's, for now, I would say I would have to look at health systems, probably not health system and organization here, but yeah, I would say 2 courses so far. So I don't know if that is sufficient or not, but here's the thing about how this is structured, right? So in as much, if your interest is to do something that has a lot of programming, what you can then do is, and I'm happy to work with people that are interested in doing this in part 2, by the way. What you can then do is, when you get to part 2, right, you're carving out a problem that is going to involve some hardcore programming, as you put it, right? And incidentally, I mean, there's got to be a balance here, right? You may be interested in that, but there could be a couple of other people that are maybe just interested in the information management side of things or something like that. So to answer the question, that I see already 2 courses. I'd have to check the course outlines to see if there are other courses that that perhaps have a lot of analytics and programming. And one of the courses is the one I'm teaching right now. Although quite a bit of SQL, right? A whole lot of SQL actually. We look at both select, insert, update statements, both DML statements and DDL statements actually. And then there's a little bit of Python programming, right? So how you create a simple Python program to actually query a database and things of that sort, you know? Yeah, so part 2, right? And in fact, incidentally, I personally picked up quite a number of skills that I have, the things that I didn't know when I was doing my the research part for my master's and for my doctoral studies, not necessarily from coursework per se, because when you're working on a research project, you are actually forced to do that. So maybe one of the things that you can strive to do is to say, I'm going to create some sophisticated analytics dashboard for Ngungu mini hospital or something, right? So you'll be the one building that. I don't know if that answers your question or something.
Yes, it does, Doc. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I thought there was another hand up. I don't know who that was, but maybe it was a mistake. Anyways, so for part 2, right? So you do your the structures, you do your ethical clearance, and typically your ethical clearance is because most of you are going to do health related kind of things. I don't know how familiar you are with research here, but this is mandatory for the UNZA. You will not be allowed to proceed with your research before you get ethical clearance approval. And because you're working on health, you will be required to get ethical clearance approval from UNZA break, right? And there's a whole series of steps, right? UNZA break is one of the 3 research ethics committees, and the way ethics committees are structured at UNZA is there's one for those doing humanities and social science courses, law students, people in education, people doing sociology, psychology, and all those things. And then those that are doing physical sciences, mining engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, all the engineering type programs, physics, they'll get permission from NASREC, right? Natural and Applied Sciences Research Ethics Committee. And then people like you, I know you're in between, is it? I don't know how this is going to work, but NS may force you to get approval from NASREC because the program is housed in the School of Natural and Applied Sciences. But ideally, you should be getting permission, and maybe it depends on the study you're going to be doing here, from the Biomedical Research Ethics Committee. Now, if you're doing some mainstream health-related, research where you will, let's say, conduct a study, let's say at Ngungu Mini Hospital, for instance, besides UNZA break, you will need to then get, ethical clearance approval from the National Health Research Authority, for instance, and then you get permission from the Ministry of Health, and then you get permission from Ngungu, right? And then you start doing your data collection, right? So you after you do ethical clearance here, you do your data collection. After your data collection, you do your data analysis, right? After your data analysis, you obviously write your dissertation, right? You draft your dissertation. Although the dissertation idea is supposed to be drafted early on in the process, you start working on some chapters or something, and then you submit, and then you're done. But so this may seem simple, but it does take a lot of time. Trivial things really like getting ethical clearance approval sometimes can be problematic to students, right? They send back a proposal. No, send it back or something. I recently had students get ethical clearance approval here recently, which was quite nice, I guess, for them. Right. So things like this, you get feedback like this, right? To say you can now go ahead with your research. And the thing about this approval is a number of these places where you're going to be collecting data will not allow you to proceed without this sort of approval, right? So kind of like this sort of stuff. Yeah, and then after you write your dissertation, it's a whole procedure here, right? You as you are writing, actually you fill out your intention submit, right? So you inform the university to say you're planning to submit in the next 3 months, in the next 4 months, so that they start looking for an examiner, right? So you fill out intention. Somewhere at the end here, there's a form you fill out. You do something like I don't know what this is here, but request for changes supervisor. And I don't know if it's here, but you fill out. I don't know why it's not there, but nomination of examiners, notice of intent to submit, right? So you tell the university, I'm planning to submit in 2 months or something, and then after you submit your intention to submit, your supervisor will nominate examiners and stuff. Anyway, and then once 3 examiners are nominated, they'll examine your work. You then defend, you make corrections, and then you graduate or something. So it's quite the journey. My experience has been, on average, most of my master's students would take roughly about 2 years to do the part 2, so in total 3. But the reason is most of the students I tend to work with, they're busy people, right? They're working. They're not doing this master's the way I did it. I did my master's full time. In fact, even my PhD, my doctoral studies, right? Literally, my work was to do research. So I wake up in the morning, 7 hours, I go to the shuttle stop, I get on the shuttle, I cycle to campus, I go to the lab, and I'm working on my research, right? The whole day. I knock off at 17, I go home. Sometimes I do work Monday through to Friday, sometimes even Saturday, right? So it shortens the period you're spending on the research or something. But anyways, so hopefully this whole process is intuitive in terms of what you're going to do in CSC 6000. Unless there are questions about this, I think you have an idea of what of how the program is structured, at least anyway. If there are no questions, right? By the way, this is it, right? Every week on on Tuesdays, we shall be spending 3 hours here, apparently. Which is it can be quite exhausting, I guess. But 3 hours here for the lecture, right? So 17:30 to 20:30, ideally. It's an introduction, so we may not really get 20:30 or something like that, but that's fine. And by the way, I'm suggesting as we are, I'm going to pause here because I've been talking for a long time and people are not responding. So maybe people are tired. We want to relax a little, but this is me telling you that I want to schedule a makeup class. I want us to catch up. So my proposal is you must choose Saturday or Sunday, right? Saturday or Sunday. On Saturday or Sunday, I will make time from 12, although I have a series of other makeup classes, but I shall make time from 12 all the way up to somewhere around 18. So either we start at 12, 13, 14, or 13, 14, 15, or something like that, or 16, 17, 18, all right? So that's Saturday and Sunday. So you must let me know. I want us to quickly catch up here. We've lost quite a bit of time. Anyways, I hope you have a course representative, or somebody who is going to reach out to me or something. It would be nice if you were to select a course representative. Now, if there are no thoughts or questions about this, right? The question really is that, I mean, what are we doing in 5541? Health data management. Yeah. Well, it turns out that if you look at the course outline, and I will share the course outline with you together with this slide deck by today, right after the class, I think, or latest tomorrow morning. It turns out that this course is designed to provide you with a comprehensive introduction to the theory and practice of health data management, right, which really forms a very fundamental pillar of health informatics. This is all verbatim text here. So apparently the document states that in an era where health systems like smart care are generating vast amounts of data, the ability to manage this data effectively is critical, right? So it's not just smart care here, it's all over, right? PACS platforms and risk platforms and all that. And what you begin to notice is that the course actually covers, it's aimed to cover the entire data life cycle, right? And we'll discuss the life cycle in the very first lecture series, right after this one. You notice that everything starts with data collection. So from collection and storage, collection and storage to retrieval, right? So accessing the data. Again, if I was to use this as an example, the master facility list, I don't know where it is here. If I was to use the master facility list as an example, it's like what we're going to be doing is looking at how data like this is collected, right? I don't know if this qualifies as a health management system, I guess to some extent, right? A decision support system or something. So from collection of data, storage of data, so we'll look at why certain types of data structures are used, specifically things like relational database management systems, okay? And then, you know, things like cleaning of the data, right? So as you're collecting the data, before you can actually make it available for people to consume, it has got to be pre-processed, right? You're cleaning it up so that it's sanitized, so that there are no errors or mistakes in the data. So look at all of those things, how we clean the data, and of course, dissemination, right? So how exactly do we disseminate this data? And it turns out that our focus on SQL is going to be very, very instrumental, right? Why? Well, because when you're collecting this data, when you're collecting the data, what you're dealing with are raw facts, right? Things that don't make sense, when looked at in isolation. When you're disseminating, what you're doing is you're actually disseminating information. So in fact, what you do from the beginning is you're collecting data, and what you output is information, something that has meaning, ideally. Okay, so you see that the course will actually utilize project lifecycle workflow to introduce you to the technical skills required to manage health data effectively. So you should expect to develop practical skills in using data collection tools like ODK, for instance, or REDCap. Practical skills for designing and querying relational database management systems, okay, using SQL, which is a structured query language. I don't know how many of you have experience with SQL, but it's all over, right? It's everywhere. And the idea behind SQL is simple here. It allows you to easily extract information stored in relational databases. And then you should expect also to gain practical skills on how to implement, data governance frameworks, right, that are compliant to acts or legislation like the Data Protection Act number 3 of 2021. There's something interesting about acts, right? And I have colleagues. I have a colleague who works for CIDAS, I believe it is, and he was telling me that they were actually working towards a project to try and come up with policies, right, that govern, data management, health data management. We don't have anything of that sort. So the only piece of legislation that we will actually extensively look at is the Generic Data Protection Act. And I like mentioning something about the Data Protection Act that we can easily relate to, right? The fact that there's a clause in there that prevents data that has any sort of personal identifying information from being stored on servers that are outside the boundaries of Zambia. So in other words, right, if you have patient records at Ngungu or Chainama, and you are using Google Drive or Google Drive to store those records, you're doing the wrong thing, right? Because Google servers are outside the boundaries of the Republic of Zambia. So we're gonna dissect this 40-page document to try and understand the things that are in here, the things that are in here and try and see if we can map them to health data so that we learn exactly what it means to do the right thing when you're managing data like that. We'll also probably talk a bit more about the Office of the Data Protection Commission or something, right? There's a whole office here. So if you go to dataprotection.gov.zm, you'll find details about this, right? We are quite serious actually as a country, when it comes to to legislation here. The only problem is implementation. At your own time, I do encourage you to just poke around some of these sites, I guess. I know it's quite a number of sites, but there's a question from Julia. Sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
Sorry, Dr. Hay, for inconvenience.
No, it's fine.
My question is just based on the courses that they've put on the electives. I think one of the courses we've already discussed about methods and biostatistics has been elective course, which is which in my understanding is supposed to be like a core course because for the preparation of dissertation.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other also course is ethics and legal issues. You are talking about the data protection there. I don't know if at all there should be an excuse putting ethics and legal issues in health informatics as an elective.
Yeah. Well, so the reason really is because some of these concepts, some of these things are actually discussed in other courses, although not in great detail. So I'll give you an example of in here, in health data management. Already, I'm hinting at the fact that one of the things we're going to be doing is we'll discuss this, right? These important pieces of legislation. In fact, it's not just this. We'll look at certain types of international legislations in this very course, right? Like HIPAA and GDPR, for instance. Ultimately, there's got to be a choice to be made, right? What do we classify as mandatory for a health informatics course, and what should be an elective, if that kind of makes sense, and ultimately, the choice is up to you on the career path that you want to pursue, your interest, right? So you would, I don't know, but I can, like I said, we'll table this to the other people and try and find out, but not that it will change anything really. Maybe the only thing it will change is say we're changing this so that biostatistics and research methods and ethics and legal issues, these are going to be mandatory, and then healthcare systems and organization and perhaps health data management is an elective. That's one way of doing it, right? So that you're forcing people to do what is perceived to be very critical. I was not involved when these programs were being developed, unfortunately, and so I'm not really sure why these decisions were made. But because really, really smart people actually spent a lot of time discussing these at workshops and doing research, I'm sure there's a very good reason why they decided to have these 3 as core courses and the remainder as electives. I don't know, but I will get back to you. I've taken note of that. Thank you. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Doc. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Anyhow, so there's that. And then in terms of the actual learning outcomes, right? So this is what you should expect in the course here. But in terms of the actual learning outcomes, by the time you get to May, when you're writing the exam, the expectation is you should be able to demonstrate a comprehensive understanding of the data, health data life cycle, and all the associated principles associated with effective data management. That's one of the key learning outcomes. In addition, you should be able to identify and deploy appropriate electronic data collection platforms or systems for field and clinical data capture, right? So this is tied to the first stage, is data collection. Okay, so we'll equip you with a skill such that you'll be able to identify and deploy appropriate electronic data collection systems. Also, you should be able to get to a stage where you're able to conceptualize complex health data in relational terms. Now you notice here the term relational terms here is hinting at the fact that we're going to have to spend a lot of time understanding relational databases, okay? Understanding relational databases. And the interesting thing about a relational database is, actually, is it's a file on a computer, just like your docx or your .pdf file. It's a file on disk, but it's a special type of file because it encapsulates description about the data that is in the database and the actual data itself, right? Now, because it's a file, it turns out, right, that you need a piece of software for you to access that file, is it? A relational database management system, RDBMS, right? So there's this file, a database, and then you need a piece of software to access that database. At some point, we introduce you to an application as well. It's like a tiered kind of thing, right? Where you use the application to interact with the RDBMS so that you gain access to the data itself. And one of my personal favorite is DB Browser. I'll talk about DB Browser just now. But DB Browser is a piece of software that allows you to, it's a very simple kind of application, but you use it to interrogate SQLite, right? SQLite 3, I guess. DB Unza DB, right? You interrogate, check the schema or something like that. The tables. I don't know if so. You use it to interrogate the RDBMS, right? The RDBMS that I'm going to be using is SQLite. There are a number of them, and we'll discuss all of these things here. I'm sure you've heard things like Microsoft Access, or MySQL, MySQL, Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, right? PostgreSQL, a whole range of relational database management systems. So we'll study these things here. So you should be able to conceptualize complex health data in relational terms, ideally, and design normalized database schemas, right? So we'll do this. And in fact, we spend quite a bit of time looking at this, because when you're dealing with data, right, that data, once collected, has got to be stored somewhere. You can store it in a flat file, right, on your file system, but the common approach is to store it in a relational database management system, which is why we're going to spend a lot of time doing that. What else? Well, when you store that data, the next thing you have got to do is you have got to query, right? You want to manage the data. People want to access the data, like what I was doing here. When I'm accessing the master facility list here, I am accessing the data that has been stored in the database, right? The relational database, hopefully. Yeah. So when I'm accessing data from the relational database, what I'm doing is I'm using SQL, or structured query language. Now, this structured query language, I can view it as a programming language, although it's not really a programming language, but it's a language. You primarily use it to not just access data, but to create new records, to update records, to delete records, and indeed to create database structures. So we'll study SQL. What else are we going to do? So by the time you are getting to May, you will be in a position where you're able to apply SQL to create, manipulate, and extract data views from large-scale relational databases. And we'll try and see if we can spice things up here so that we use different databases, like database associated with lab results, right? Or patient data, something similar to SmartCare. Maybe our kind friends will be kind enough to share anonymized data of actual records from SmartCare or something. Or maybe we can use the master facility list, right? Because the relations here include what? District, province, type of health facility. If you look at the list here, if I just look at master facility list here, you notice that there are different sort of fields associated with the data, right? Province, district, facility type. Is it level 1 hospital, level 2, level 3? Is it a health post? Ownership. Is this public? Is it owned by the military, like Northern Command or MINASOC or something? Is it a private hospital? Is it a mission hospital? And all those things. Also, the other learning outcome is you get to a stage where you're able to analyze and implement ETL workflows. ETL just stands for extract, transform, and load. So when you're collecting data, these are the operations that you do, right, prior to inserting the data into a database. You extract, you transform it, right, and then you load the data, right? So that you fuse this data into multiple sources in the central repository or something. And then also, you'll be in a position where you'll be able to apply appropriate data cleaning and quality assurance techniques to address real-world data issues. When you're out there collecting data in the field, mistakes are made, right? You're entering the age of somebody and somebody enters 200. That's an error, is it? We don't have human beings that have lived to be 200 years. Apparently in the Bible, there are certain people or something, but we know that that's an anomaly. So you will learn how to clean all of those anomalies, right? How to process data. And then the other learning outcome is you should be able to get to a stage where you're able to evaluate data governance principles that ensure that you are compliant with ethical standards and important legal frameworks. Now, there are certain international standards that we're going to look at, like HIPAA and GDPR, but also I would want us to focus a lot more on the Data Protection Act number 3 of 2021, but because this is something that is closer to home. Okay, maybe in the process we will also look at if you look at what Smart Zambia Institute does here. If you look at the Smart Zambia Institute website, the download section has a number of interesting documents, right? That may be related to some of the things that we're going to be doing, right? Things to do with electronic, right, governance. Like for instance, I think it would be nice for us to study, not for instance, actually, we'll need to study the e-government master plan and the e-government interoperability standard, perhaps, right? Anyways, so there's that. Now that we have an idea of what we're going to be doing, it's like, how is this course structured? Well, it's a half course we've already established, 15 credit units, okay? And what I'm going to do here is, because of past experience, teaching like this for 3 hours may not really be healthy and productive, especially for you. I mean, I've been teaching for a very long time, so I'm used to this. I can even talk for 4 hours, right? I was in Chinsali last week. I was working from Kapasamakasa University. We had a training session for 3 days, and I was talking from morning to lunch. We break off from lunch because I was the only facilitator here, from lunch to 17 hours, 3 straight days. So I can do this, but it turns out that it's usually not very, what's the word? Not very helpful for you. And so what I've done in the recent past is I've organized my lecture sessions in such a way that we have different activities, right? So where there's a practical session required, we'll split it up in such a way that there's maybe the first hour we do like an introduction, right? The theory part. And then there's like, what do you call this? A practical session, right? In instances, we will invite people. I plan to invite some of my colleagues from CIDAS. I already have names in mind, and all those things. So we'll utilize a seminar style kind of setup, right, where the 3 hours will be broken up into certain sessions. There will be some instances where I mentioned paper discussions. We will try and see if we can have, kind of like paper discussions, actually. So that we, in addition to just looking at the theory part, we look at what the state of the art is, right? What sort of research are people doing currently? Right? That would be nice. Okay. So the structure would be like a little bit of theory for the lecture sessions, some practical sessions, and then some seminars or something. In terms of the, what do you call this? The course structure, I think the timetable has already been shared. You already have access to this. You want to make sure that you bookmark the Google Calendar because it's going to be a moving target. There will be changes. They'll be communicated to you, but it's best you do what I do, right? I found that my life is a lot easier if I organize it using tools like this, right? So I'll subscribe to all the calendars. Like in this particular case, I have the calendar for all the programs that I'm involved with, like health informatics. Is this health informatics? This is information technology. right? So you probably want to bookmark the calendar. You can add it by going to, if you go to calendar.google, I'm sure you use Google Calendar anyway. You can add, right? You can import it or something. You can add the calendar and stuff. And then in terms of course administration, we have a directive from the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs, Professor Namangala, for us to use the learning management system. So it's just a matter of time before we implement this. For now, however, I will be dumping the slide decks and any other important documents somewhere on a shared Google Drive, and then I'll share the links in the WhatsApp groups and also on the mailing list. Okay, but it's just a matter of time before we actually start accessing the learning management system. You access the learning management system by going to PG LMS, PG lms.unza.zm, right? And credentials should have already been created on your behalf, ideally. Yeah, and then if there are any other files to be shared, again, I shall use what do you call this? Maybe Google Drive or something like that, right? Now here's the part where we start talking about, I guess, important things like prescribed and recommended textbooks. I have a few things here that I've put here. These are from the program document, but what I normally do is towards the end. I want to get to the end, by the way. Go to the end, like I want to go to the end here, way at the end here. And you notice at the end here, I always have this, okay? So there's a bibliography slide in my slide deck. Now, what the bibliography slide does is it includes everything, right? Everything, all the sources that I would have used to prepare that particular slide deck. So what you will notice is that some of the links there will have nothing to do with the prescribed and recommended textbooks. In other words, what I'm saying is, in addition to these prescribed and recommended textbooks, please ensure that you pay particular attention to the bibliography slide in the slide decks. Okay, so these are some of the prescribed and recommended textbooks. At your own time, you want to find time and take a look at them. The world has changed, though. What you begin to notice is that resources, right, are readily available online. You can easily find better resources than what is recommended in here. Anyways, besides recommended textbooks, and I guess this is where Ishmael's question is coming in, right? There's going to be quite a bit of hands-on things here, practical things we're going to do. And for the things to do with Python, the programming part, it's just mild programming. We're going to be using Python. Apparently, it's supposed to be just a small little component here, nothing too complex. And then, so we'll have a session where we'll walk you through how to install the interpreter, you know, how to use the basics of the languages so that you get an appreciation of how to write a simple program or something that you can use to query a database or something. And then for SQL, the structured query language, if you remember, what I'm going to be using primarily is a relational database management system called SQLite, right? It's lightweight. To help you understand, I will be using DB Browser as the application to interact with the database, right? So this thing here, DB Browser. And then from here is where we'll be writing the SQL queries ideally. Although you can write the SQL queries right on the terminal here, in SQLite, this particular case. Okay. In terms of course grading, it's standard. Almost all the postgraduate courses, except CSC 6000, they are structured using a 60-40 split, where 60% is allocated towards the continuous assessment and 40% is directed towards the final exam, right? So we're going to break up the continuous assessment. I think this needs to be updated here. I do apologize. I'll update this here. But what you need to know here is that 60% is the continuous assessment, 40% is the final exam. So we'll have class theory tests, we'll have assignments, right? We'll have seminar presentations as well. Okay. And then again, if you read through this document that I shared with you, you'll notice that there are grades indicated here, is it? What? This is wrong here. Is this? Okay, yeah, it's fine. You notice that at postgraduate level, for you to pass, yeah, you need to get at least 50 right, to get a bare pass. So it's different from undergrad. So in case you're wondering, you have this slide deck here, which has a breakdown of the different score ranges and, you know, the grade points associated with those score ranges, like these things here, including the corresponding grades ideally. Okay. So these grade points would be used to classify, which is what UNZA started to do now. And then again, more on course management here. In case you need to get in touch with me, sorry, this is I'm in room number 5, Department of Computing and Informatics. This is an error I need to fix. And my office hours. So office hours, when you are guaranteed to find me in the office, it's between 8 and 12 on Monday. So every Monday you will find me in the office between 8 and 12, between 8 and 12. In the event that you're too busy and you are unable to come and see me between 8 and 12, but you really, really want to come and see me, just check my calendar. There's a link there. So you have access to my calendar. I don't know if I can open an incognito window here. Ooh. I don't know if I can open an incognito window on calendar part here so that I showcase this. I think it is up to date. I believe so. I don't know. If not, I'll update it. It's a moving target. So you can check my schedule and say, "Oh, Lighton, I see that you are available." Today is what? I'm busy now. But I see you're available on Wednesday between, is it 15? What is this now? I don't know what I'm, between 15:30 and 17 hours. Can I come and see or something? And then we can schedule a meet or something. More importantly, communication will primarily be done using the mailing list. So the dedicated mailing list for this program, which is DCI-MSC-HI, right? So if you want to send a query or something, just DCI-MSC-HI@unza.z, right? And then everybody will see that message or something. Okay. There's also the WhatsApp group, although I despise WhatsApp because it's difficult to keep track of what's going on, right? You have a sea of messages and you don't know which message is tied to which thread. It's so hard, you know. But also, in my defense, right, the reason why I like using email is because the UNZA has a communication policy, and in the communication policy it's explicitly stated that we use email as a formal communication channel. Academic dishonesty is taken very serious at the UNZA, right? So if we have an assessment and you're caught cheating, the implications, these implications actually come from the rules and regulations on academic assessments for students. I will share this document so that you have access to it. There are repercussions for doing that, right? I won't waste a lot of time talking about these offenses, but at your own time, please read this document, not back to back, but focus on the parts that are relevant to this section, the slide deck. Okay. In instances where, in some instances, it will be explicit to say you're not allowed to use, let's say, you know, a chatbot or an LLM for you to automatically generate content or something like that, right? We shall explicitly state this. And then something else I wanted to talk about are the guidelines, but I already, I think, provided details about this, specifically where you can find these guidelines and what to look out for. This document talks about everything you're going to be doing during your stay at the UNZA as you're doing this Master of Health Informatics. I'm not sure if there are any questions. This is, we still have about 36 minutes left before 2030, but I know this is the first session and people are tired. I'm going to suggest that we actually, because this is quite lengthy as well, the course, I'm trying to contextualize the course. So it's going to be quite lengthy. I would much rather we do this on Saturday or Sunday. Are there quick questions or thoughts about this?
Yeah, I have a question, Doc.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing the recommended books. Just a clarification, are these books just for this particular course that you'll be taking us in both for term 1 and term 2, or the recommended books for the overall program? So
No, so these are just recommended books for this particular course I'm taking you in, which 551. So the other course instructors, you should expect them to provide you with a list of recommended books. If they don't, I'm the course coordinator. You can reach out to me. I'm happy to share these things, but I would much rather the course instructors do this themselves.
Okay. So I have another question.
Yes, please.
Yes. I will digress a bit. So for us under ZNPHI,
Yes.
our sponsors had requested that the calendar is emailed to them as well as the timetable. I had sent an email, but unfortunately, I'm sure maybe you might have maybe missed it.
Yeah. So I can respond to that. I noticed Professor Period shared the sessional dates first, sessional dates, and then also the calendar was the actual course calendar was shared as well. But here's the thing: what I'd mentioned, if you remember, I don't know if you had attended that. There was a meeting where I was invited in, specifically meant for the people under the ZNPHI. And I think there was mention of the fact that this is going to the funders. So I addressed an issue, say, would this need to be formally prepared, or is this sufficient? Observe, is this, what is that? Is this sufficient? Are these session dates from UNZA? Is the actual session dates actually communicated to us, right? To everybody, the invest community. Is this sufficient in addition to the actual course calendar or the course calendars? The program calendar rather, or does this need to be formal? Like, does it need to be stamped by the department and, like a formal letter going to whom it may concern and all that? Is a clarification I needed. Would you know if this is sufficient, the session dates? And because I can share these today actually.
Yes. So what happened was when I shared this calendar, Professor Pri shared the same one as well, and the one that you had sent me. So the administrative officer at ZNPHI, when I spoke to her yesterday, she was like, okay, this is okay, but they would prefer that this comes from you instead of the student.
I see. Okay. So can I ask, I don't know who is representing those under ZNPHI. Can I kindly, politely ask that you send me an email or a WhatsApp message saying, send this, I need the email address or whom I should direct this to. Is that fine? And then I can do this.
That's okay. I'll just send you a hello because I had emailed and had also sent you a WhatsApp message.
Yes.
The email address, I attached the email addresses to the message. So I'll just probably maybe send a hello just to remind you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Are there any other thoughts or questions about this or the course? I hope a lot of the uncertainties that was there, I know there were a lot of questions, and the reason we were slow in responding is I knew we would have such a session where we would try and clear the air, if you will. I'm glad you raised important points about the course combinations, although it's unlikely that the status of the core and electives will change, but I will still discuss this with the head of department and our other cooperating partners from Regio or something. But are there any other questions? If not, again, I don't know who the course rep is, but whoever they are, maybe you can tag me in the main WhatsApp group, or you can send me an email. You can send the email to the mailing list and just say, we've decided that we want to have class on Saturday or on Sunday or something, and then you specify the time. It would be nice if you could do this as soon as possible, because I have other classes that I'm scheduling. I'm yet to hear from students from yesterday's class, for instance. I want to make sure that we catch up on lost time here. We've lost quite a bit of. Thanks for the hello message. I've just seen it, by the way. Thank you. So if there are no questions, then colleagues, this is it's 19:59. There's still about 30 minutes left. I think in as much as we're behind, there's no need to overdo it. Otherwise, we end up just not covering the entire part 2 here. I would much rather we start and finish it either on Saturday or on Sunday. Okay. Thank you very much, and see you. Don't forget you have class, I think, tomorrow. I'm sure the course instructor will reach out to you with details. I'm checking my calendar here, and apparently you have you're supposed to have, is it clinical decision support system or something? But also, please don't forget, tomorrow there's a presentation between 14:30 and 17:30. Actually, there's an oral exam, PhD oral exam. This is health related. You probably want to just attend. Maybe the first. So it's from 14 to 17:30 because the examiners have to deliberate and all that. But if I were you, I'd just listen to what the presentation is about. It's about 30 minutes, so 14:30 to 15 hours, and then you can go back to your work or something like that. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, and good night.
Thank you so much, Doc. Good night.